At 18, my teacher refused my college recommendation, saying, "You're not really Ivy League material," while grooming my classmate. Today, he's apologizing from jail. I'm Maya, and I need to tell you about the most satisfying takedown of my life. At 18, I thought I understood how the world worked. I thought hard work, perfect grades, and genuine dedication would earn respect from the adults in my life. I was spectacularly wrong about one particular adult, but that mistake led to the most strategic revenge I've ever executed. When I was 14, my father died in a boating accident. He'd been my anchor, my best friend, and as a fellow English teacher at a different school, my intellectual companion. His sudden death left me desperately seeking a replacement father figure, and in my grief-clouded judgment, I fixated on my English teacher, Mr. Walker. For 4 years, I poured every ounce of energy into earning his approval. I entered writing competitions, tutored struggling students to raise his class average, and stayed after school to discuss literature. I was convinced I could become his star pupil. But Mr. Walker had eyes only for Becky, a blonde, conventionally pretty girl who handed in assignments late and rarely spoke in class discussions. When she turned in homework on time, he'd announced to the entire class that she was the best student he'd taught in years. On her birthday, he brought a cake and balloons that decorated the classroom for a week. When I mentioned it was my birthday, he muttered, "Congratulations," without looking up from his papers. The breaking point came senior year when I needed recommendation letters for college applications. I'd maintained a 4.0 GPA while Becky struggled to keep a C+ average. Yet when I asked Mr. Walker for a recommendation to Yale, he told me to come back the next day. I left his office walking on air, finally believing I'd earned his recognition. 24 hours later, everything changed. "I won't need your help filling this out," he said dismissively when I returned. "I'll let you know when it's done." As I left his office, crushed but still hopeful, I saw Becky entering with what looked like a recommendation letter template in her hands, wearing an outfit that was completely inappropriate for school. Weeks passed. The application deadline approached. No letter materialized. When I finally confronted him, Mr. Walker delivered the line that would haunt him forever. "You're not really Ivy League material. I just don't think you've ever put in that much effort." That's when something inside me shifted. Not broke, shifted. I suddenly saw Mr. Walker clearly for the first time. Not as the father figure I desperately wanted, but as a predator who was grooming Becky while dismissing me. My grief-driven obsession with his approval evaporated, replaced by cold, analytical fury. What Mr. Walker didn't know was that losing my father had forced me to develop skills far beyond those of a typical 18-year-old. I'd spent years managing my mother's depression, handling insurance paperwork, and navigating complex bureaucratic systems. I understood documentation, evidence, and how institutions really worked. I also knew how to research, how to build cases, and how to be methodical when emotions were running high. I started with the basics. That afternoon, I went to the library and began documenting every inappropriate interaction I'd witnessed between Mr. Walker and Becky over 4 years. The birthday celebrations that violated school policy about treating students equally. The way he looked at her when he thought no one was watching. The special privileges, the constant praise for mediocre work, the physical proximity during tutoring sessions. But I needed more than observations. I needed Becky's side of the story, and I needed to understand whether she was a willing participant or an unwitting victim. My instincts said victim, but I had to be sure. The next day, I approached Becky after lunch. "Want to study together for the English exam?" I asked, suppressing 4 years of resentment. She looked surprised. We'd never been friends, but she agreed to meet at a coffee shop after school. Over lattes, I slowly worked the conversation toward college applications. "Mr. Walker's writing my recommendation for Yale," she said, stirring her coffee. "He says I have a really good chance of getting in." I nearly choked. Becky's standardized test scores were public record through our class ranking system, and they were dramatically below Yale's requirements. But instead of expressing outrage, I probed deeper. "Can I ask you something?" I said carefully. "Don't you think it's weird how Mr. Walker treats you differently than other students?" Her face changed. "I never really thought about it. My parents are never around, so it's nice to have someone who cares about me." That's when she said something that made my blood run cold. "He told me I'm special, that I have potential no one else can see. He says we have a connection that goes beyond teacher and student." Classic grooming language. I pressed further. "Has he ever touched you inappropriately?" "Not really," she said, shifting uncomfortably. "Sometimes he puts his hand on my shoulder when reviewing my work, and he hugged me after I won the poetry contest." "Does he contact you outside school?" "Yeah, he gave me his personal number for academic emergencies. He sends me articles about writing sometimes." Every response confirmed what I'd suspected. Mr. Walker wasn't just playing favorites. He was systematically grooming a vulnerable teenager whose parents were absent. My 4 years of feeling rejected suddenly made sense. I hadn't failed to earn his attention. I'd failed to present as a potential victim, but Becky wasn't ready to hear this truth. When I gently suggested his behavior was inappropriate, she got defensive. "You're just jealous because he likes me better than you," she said, gathering her things to leave. I let her go. Confronting a grooming victim rarely works. They're psychologically conditioned to protect their abuser. I needed a different approach. The next morning, I went to see Ms. Garcia, our school counselor. She was young, sharp, and had a reputation for actually listening to students. I knocked on her office door during lunch, and she invited me in immediately. "I need to report inappropriate teacher behavior," I said without preamble. Her expression turned serious instantly. "Tell me everything." I laid out my documented observations methodically, the birthday celebrations that violated equal treatment policies, the personal phone number, the special connection, language, the recommendation letter situation that suggested quid pro quo dynamics. Ms. Garcia took detailed notes, asking clarifying questions throughout. "These are serious concerns," she said when I finished. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I'm required to investigate immediately." "What happens now?" I asked. "I'll need to interview both Becky and Mr. Walker separately, and I'll report this to the principal. Your name won't be mentioned in initial conversations. We'll protect your privacy as the reporter." Then she said something that changed my entire college trajectory. "You still need that recommendation letter for Yale, don't you? The deadline is next week. I'd be happy to write one for you if you send me your resume and a personal statement." I thanked her and left, feeling like a massive weight had been lifted. For the first time in 4 years, an adult at school was taking me seriously. The next few days were tense. Mr. Walker acted normally in class, but I noticed he wasn't calling on me even when I was the only student with my hand raised. It was like I'd become invisible to him. Given what I'd reported, this was probably intentional. Becky was avoiding me entirely. She switched seats in our shared classes and wouldn't make eye contact in the hallways. I figured Ms. Garcia had already interviewed her. On Thursday, Mr. Walker didn't show up for class. The substitute teacher said he'd called in sick, but something felt off. That afternoon, I overheard 2 girls talking in the bathroom. "Did you see Becky crying this morning? She looked totally devastated." I found Becky at her locker after school. She was clearly upset, her eyes red and puffy. "Are you okay?" I asked gently. She whirled around. "You went to Ms. Garcia, didn't you?" I didn't deny it. "How did you know?" "Mr. Walker told me someone was spreading lies about him, trying to ruin his career. He was really upset." She slammed her locker door. "You've ruined everything. He was going to help me get into Yale." "Becky, think about what you just said. Teachers and students don't have relationships, they have professional interactions. But she stormed off, leaving me standing in the empty hallway. The next morning, I arrived at school early, hoping to catch Ms. Garcia before classes started. As I walked down the hallway toward her office, I heard raised voices from inside. I slowed down, recognizing Mr. Walker's voice immediately. "This is completely unprofessional," he was saying angrily. "You can't just take the word of one jealous student and launch an investigation." "It's standard procedure, Robert," Ms. Garcia replied calmly. "When concerns are raised about teacher conduct, we investigate. It's not personal." "Not personal? My entire career is on the line because of some teenager's vendetta." "No one's career is on the line yet," Ms. Garcia said. "This is a preliminary inquiry, but I have to say, your reaction isn't helping your case." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Innocent people typically cooperate with investigations rather than trying to intimidate witnesses. Becky told me you confronted her about our conversation. That was completely inappropriate, Robert." There was a pause. Then, "I think I need to speak with my union representative." "That's your right, but in the meantime, the principal has decided you should take administrative leave while we sort this out." "This is ridiculous," Mr. Walker muttered. "All because I refused to write a letter for one entitled student." I heard footsteps approaching and quickly ducked into the nearest bathroom. Through the crack in the door, I watched Mr. Walker storm past, his face red with anger. A few minutes later, I knocked on Ms. Garcia's door. She looked tired but managed a smile. "I think Mr. Walker knows I reported him," I said, sitting across from her desk. "He told Becky someone was spreading lies." Ms. Garcia frowned. "That's very concerning. He shouldn't be discussing this with students, especially not Becky. I'll add this to my report." "What happens now?" "Mr. Walker will be on leave for at least a week while we conduct a full investigation. The principal is taking this very seriously." She paused. "And don't worry about your recommendation letter. I submitted it yesterday. You have a strong application." The next week was surreal. We had a substitute for English who clearly had no idea what she was doing, just having us read silently while she scrolled through her phone. The rumor mill was working overtime with theories about Mr. Walker's absence, but no one seemed to know the truth except me and Becky. I tried to approach Becky several times, but she continued avoiding me. I could see her texting constantly during lunch, her face tense with worry. I had a bad feeling about who might be on the other end of those messages. My suspicions were confirmed Thursday afternoon. I was walking to the bus when I saw Becky getting into a black sedan in the school parking lot, not her usual blue Honda. Something about the situation felt wrong, so I ran over just as she was closing the door. I tapped on the window. She rolled it down with obvious annoyance. "What do you want?" she asked. I looked at the driver and felt my stomach drop. It was Mr. Walker. "Becky, you shouldn't be going anywhere with him," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He's on administrative leave. He's not supposed to be near school or contacting students." Mr. Walker leaned over. "We're just getting coffee to discuss her college essay. It's completely innocent." "Then why are you hiding in the parking lot instead of meeting somewhere public with her parents present?" I challenged. "My parents don't care what I do," Becky said defensively. "They're never home anyway." "That's exactly the problem," I replied. "He's taking advantage of your situation." Mr. Walker's friendly facade slipped. "You need to mind your own business. You've already caused enough trouble with your lies." "They're not lies. And if everything is so innocent, why are you meeting with a student when you're supposed to be on leave?" Becky looked uncertain for the first time. "Maybe we should do this another day," she said to Mr. Walker. "I don't want you getting in more trouble." His expression turned manipulative. Don't let her ruin our special connection, Becky. Remember what we talked about? Some people just don't understand relationships like ours. I felt nauseated hearing him use those grooming tactics right in front of me. Becky, please don't go with him. This isn't right. She hesitated, looking between us. Finally, she unbuckled her seatbelt. Fine. I'll just go home. This is too dramatic. Mr. Walker grabbed her arm. We had plans. Don't let her manipulate you. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling the police right now if you don't let her go. He released her arm immediately, glaring at me with pure hatred. You're making a big mistake, both of you. Becky got out of the car and Mr. Walker sped away, tires screeching. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then Becky said quietly, You should report this. He's not supposed to be contacting students, is he? No, he's not. I confirmed. Will you come with me to talk to Ms. Garcia? She nodded, looking small and confused. I think I need to show her something. We walked back to the school together. Ms. Garcia was surprised to see us, but invited us into her office immediately. Becky pulled out her phone and showed dozens of text messages from Mr. Walker. Some were about her college essay, but others were deeply personal, telling her how special she was and how no one understood their connection. Ms. Garcia's face grew increasingly serious as she scrolled through the messages. This is extremely inappropriate, she said. Thank you for showing me this, Becky. I know it wasn't easy. What's going to happen? Becky asked, her voice shaking. I need to report this to the principal immediately. Mr. Walker has violated the terms of his administrative leave by contacting you. This changes everything. She turned to me. And thank you for intervening today. That took real courage. After we left Ms. Garcia's office, Becky turned to me with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry I didn't believe you before. I thought he really cared about me. It's not your fault, I said firmly. He's the adult. He knew exactly what he was doing. Do you think I can still get into Yale without his recommendation? Definitely. Ms. Garcia wrote me an amazing letter. I bet she'd do the same for you. The next day, Mr. Walker wasn't just on leave. He was suspended pending a formal investigation. The principal made an announcement that he would be absent indefinitely and that a permanent substitute would take over his classes. Word spread quickly that police were involved. The investigation had found evidence on Mr. Walker's computer that corroborated our statements. Photos of multiple female students taken without permission, inappropriate text exchanges with at least 3 current and former students, and a pattern of behavior going back years. More girls came forward. A junior named Emma told me he'd invited her to his house for private tutoring the year before. I didn't go because it felt weird, she said, but I never thought to report it. The pattern became clear. Mr. Walker targeted vulnerable girls with absent parents or personal struggles, making them feel special while maintaining professional distance from students like me who might recognize the inappropriate behavior. A week later, Ms. Garcia called Becky and me back to her office. The principal was there, along with a woman in a suit who introduced herself as the district attorney's representative. We wanted to update you on the situation, Ms. Garcia said. The police found substantial evidence on Mr. Walker's devices. There were photos of several students taken without permission, inappropriate communications, and clear violations of professional boundaries. The principal cleared his throat. Mr. Walker has been terminated effective immediately. The district attorney is pursuing criminal charges for inappropriate conduct with minors. Will we have to testify? Becky asked nervously. Probably not, the DA's representative said. The evidence we found should be sufficient, but we may need additional interviews to prepare the case. I felt a mixture of relief and vindication. The system had worked, slowly, imperfectly, but it had worked. There's something else, the principal added. We're implementing new training for all staff about appropriate boundaries, and we're creating clearer reporting mechanisms for students. Your courage in coming forward has prompted important changes." But the story wasn't over. A few days later, Ms. Garcia called us back with concerning news. "Mr. Walker has been released on bail," she said. "He's not allowed near the school or to contact students, but he is back in the community." My mother took this news seriously in a way that surprised me. Since my father's death, she'd been emotionally distant, but suddenly she was fierce and protective. She spent hours on the phone organizing other parents to demand increased security at school. "No one's going to mess with my daughter," she said, and for the first time in years, I felt truly supported. The school implemented new security measures, guards at all entrances, ID checks, and a buddy system for students walking to parking areas. For a week, everything felt safer. Then, on a Friday afternoon, I was walking to my car after a late yearbook meeting. The parking lot was mostly empty, dimly lit in the early winter darkness. Halfway to my car, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around and froze. Mr. Walker was standing just a few feet away, looking disheveled and desperate. "We need to talk," he said, his voice eerily calm. I backed up, fumbling for my phone. "You're violating your bail conditions. You're not supposed to be here." "I don't care anymore," he said, stepping closer. "You've ruined my life. My career is over. My reputation is destroyed. All because you were jealous that I gave attention to other students." "That's not true," I said, continuing to back away. "You were grooming multiple students. The police found evidence." His face contorted with rage. "I was helping them. Becky needed guidance, and you turned her against me with your lies." I finally got my phone out, but he lunged forward, grabbing my wrist hard enough to make me gasp. "Let go!" I shouted, trying to pull away. "Not until you listen," he hissed. "You're going to tell the police you made it all up, that you were jealous and wanted to hurt me." "I'm not doing that. Let go of me." His grip tightened. "No one will hear you scream. The security guards are at the entrances, not out here." I was about to scream anyway when I heard another voice. "Let her go, Mr. Walker." We both turned to see Becky standing nearby, her phone held up. "I'm recording this, and I've already called the police. They're on their way." Mr. Walker's face went pale. He released my wrist and stepped back. "Becky, you don't understand," he said desperately. "She's manipulating you. She turned you against me because she was jealous of our connection." Becky's expression was steel. "There was no connection. You were grooming me, taking advantage of my family situation, but I see through you now. We both do." In the distance, I could hear sirens approaching. Mr. Walker looked around frantically, then his shoulders slumped in defeat. "You have no idea what you've done," he muttered. "Yes, we do," I said firmly. "We stopped you from hurting more girls." The police arrived moments later. Mr. Walker didn't resist as they handcuffed him. An officer took our statements and reviewed Becky's video evidence. "He's going back to jail," the officer told us. "And this time, I doubt he'll get bail. Violating a restraining order and assaulting a student. The judge won't be lenient." After the police left, Becky and I stood in the parking lot processing what had happened. "How did you know to come back?" I asked. "I forgot my calculus book. When I came back, I saw his car parked down the street and recognized it immediately. I stayed hidden and called the police, then saw him following you." "Thank you," I said, my voice shaking. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." "That's what friends do," she replied. "Look out for each other." The next few weeks passed in a blur of finals, college preparations, and final police interviews. Mr. Walker was denied bail and remained in jail awaiting trial. Then came the news that made everything worthwhile. Both Becky and I had been accepted to Yale. Ms. Garcia's recommendation letters had been masterful, emphasizing not just our academic achievements, but our courage in standing up against abuse of power. Graduation day arrived with beautiful spring weather. As I sat in the auditorium in cap and gown, waiting for my name to be called, I thought about how much had changed. I'd lost my obsession with earning approval from authority figures. I'd found my voice and learned to trust my instincts. Most importantly, I'd discovered that the father figure I'd been seeking had been inside me all along. The analytical mind, moral courage, and strategic thinking my dad had modeled throughout his life. When the principal called my name, I walked across the stage with genuine pride. In the audience, my mother cheered loudly, and next to her sat Miss Garcia, beaming with pride at all the students she'd supported through the crisis. That summer, Mr. Walker's trial was swift. With overwhelming evidence, including Becky's parking lot video, he was convicted of inappropriate conduct with minors and violating his restraining order. He received a 5-year sentence. When August came, Becky and I moved into our Yale dorm room together. As we unpacked, she placed a framed photo on her desk. The two of us at graduation, arms around each other's shoulders, laughing at something off camera. "To remind us where we came from?" she said, "and what we overcame to get here." That night, lying in my narrow dorm bed, I thought about my father. I wished he could have seen me graduate, helped me move to college, met my new friend who'd become like a sister. But I knew he would have been proud, not just of getting into Yale, but of standing up for what was right when it mattered most. 6 months later, I received an unexpected email. It was from Mr. Walker, writing from prison. He'd found my college email address somehow and wanted to apologize for any misunderstanding and explain how his mentorship had been taken out of context. I deleted it without reading past the first paragraph. Some people never learn, never take responsibility, never change. But I had learned something valuable. Trust your instincts, document everything, and never let anyone convince you that your reality isn't real. The best revenge isn't just justice served. It's building a life so successful that your abuser's opinion becomes completely irrelevant. Today, I'm thriving at Yale, studying to become a prosecutor specializing in cases involving abuse of power. And Mr. Walker, he's serving his sentence and will forever be known as the teacher who destroyed his career by targeting the wrong student. Some victories take time, but they're worth the wait.